Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's a great honor for me to be your moderator for this second panel. I'm Gabriele Carrera. I'm a journalist with Formica magazine here in Rome. And I'm delighted to be the moderator of this second session towards a viable cyber and business environment. That's the title. And we are living in a very complex situation. And after COVID-19, after the Russian aggression of Ukraine, the cyberspace has become more and more affected by what is happening in international relations landscape, in the geopolitics. And when I mention cyber, I mean cyber espionage and cyber attacks against critical infrastructures, but also disinformation, as we will discuss soon. The big question of this panel is very well summarized by in the leaflet you have, and that's what are the necessary means and agreements in restore a safe IT and business environment. That's a very big and good questions that I hope that our distinguished guests will help me to deliver and to answer. So please welcome Galina Yanchenko. She's member of the Committee on Academic Developments at the Parliament in Kyiv. She's connected virtual, but very happy to have with us. And Marko Banovic, analyst at the Digital Forensic Center in Podgorica. Welcome. And Oksana Shvets, Chief Policy Officer at the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine, based in Kyiv. My first question goes to Galina Yanchenko, and that's how's the situation in the transnational fight against corruption and the organized crime? I know that we all know that Ukraine is trying to join the EU, and this topic is quite important in the negotiations. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, dear colleagues, many thanks for organizing this event and for invitation. It's an honor to be here and to share some insights from Ukraine. And greetings from Kyiv. Sorry for not joining you in person. So answering your question, I would probably say that there are a number of factors that influence the situation with overall economic development, as well as with further reforms, in particular when we are talking about anti-corruption politics of the state and overall development. As you know, the parliamentary and presidential elections took place in 2019 in Ukraine. So that's when President Volodymyr Zelensky and our team, the Servant of People, were elected. We have suggested basically an huge additional component to curb corruption in Ukraine. And in addition to anti-corruption infrastructure built by the previous team, by the previous president, we have added a significant prevention component, including the digitalization of the state services and overall communication and cooperation with citizens and business to some extent. So as some of you might know, starting in 2019, we have started to develop a state mobile application, which is called DIA, or like ACT, meaning a proactive communication and cooperation with citizens and business. And now majority of personal documents, personal ID of citizens are available online through this, basically through their smartphones. Also, a lot of services are now available through the smartphone. It gives as an opportunity to decrease corruption risks, but also to improve their quality of cooperation and communication between the state and citizens. So I would say that this is one of the positive factors that influences the overall situation with anti-corruption politics. The second positive factor is is basically an attitude of society, which has changed also a lot, especially starting with the full-scale invasion, when a lot of citizens have started to participate actively in various activities. A lot of people have joined army or started to volunteer, or basically rescuing their lives, evacuating other civilians from the dangerous regions, from the shellings and stuff like that. So when you as a citizen, you start proactively participating, when you basically help the state, and in some cases even replace the state body, your awareness and your responsibility grows tremendously. So according to the latest public opinion poll, we noticed significant shifts in general public attitude. So, for example, before the full-scale invasion, 40% of Ukrainians were absolutely against being engaged in corruption activities, no matter what happens. Now, after a year and a half of the full-scale invasion, this number grew to 60%, which is enormous shift in public opinion and overall public attitude over a relatively short period of time. However, we also have challenges. And one of the challenges in this regard is the load on law enforcement bodies and overall state bodies of Ukraine. So once again, because of full-scale invasion, now we have a lot of basically workers that used to work in police, that used to be border guards, that used to work in other law enforcement agencies. They were forced, and sometimes they voluntarily joined army or joined other units that protect our country on the front line. We are very happy and very grateful for their sacrifice, but this really gives a situation when the load on the law enforcement agencies is growing, and they can for them it's harder to basically fulfill their duties, including the duty to basically identify some crimes, identify corruption cases, or including the basically the fight with some kind of illegal activities on the borders. So this is a brief general overview of the situation. I hope I will have other chance to also talk more specifically about the situation on the border and what we do to actually fight illicit trading as well as illegal activities on the border.
Thank you. I wanted to go to Marko Banovic and talking about disinformation and how the cybersecurity strategic pictures is from the Adriatic to the Black Sea. Sorry.
So first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a real pleasure to participate in this very interesting panel. Now, we heard on the previous panel that the region of the Western Balkans is quite important for the big powers. And unfortunately, the internal issues that we are having in the Western Balkans are created a fertile ground for the malign foreign influence and for cyber attacks, and seriously are undermining the cybersecurity of the region. And with that, they are seriously undermining the cybersecurity of the whole Europe and the NATO alliance. that is the key point. So the cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns aimed at the Western Balkans countries are not just targeting them individually, they're targeting the whole alliance, the EU, the NATO, and the whole Euro-Atlantic community. So adding to that, the destabilization of the Western Balkans means destabilization of the Euro-Atlantic community. Unfortunately, the issues such as organized crime, such as weak institutions, such as very huge polarization within the societies, the far-right nationalism, all those issues are exploited by the bad actors to further destabilize the region, to further undermine the democratic development of the region and their enlargement within the EU and NATO. Now, a good example of what I have been talking about is Montenegro. So Montenegro is a member of NATO. Montenegro is perceived as the next candidate for, next most serious candidate for the EU enlargement. So when Montenegro joined the NATO in 2017, we thought that is it. That is enough for our security. We don't need to invest. We don't need to keep track with the time and with the new threats. And we suffer because of that. Montenegro has been targeted by cyber attacks much more after it joins the NATO than before. So this is a clear data showing how the foreign actors are trying to undermine the country, trying to undermine the alliance through cybersecurity. And it's very important to know that it isn't just the state institutions. It isn't just the country itself. It's individual citizens, media is targeted, businesses are targeted, even civil organizations are targeted. My organization, the organization I work, Digital Forensic Center, has been targeted. So during the COVID pandemic, we discovered a bot network on Twitter. Today's X, now in that time it was Twitter. So the bot network was connected with the ruling party in Serbia and the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. And it was promoting the three narratives that the China is the biggest friend of Serbia and Serbian government, that the China provided the biggest help for the COVID relief, and that the EU didn't help at all for the COVID relief.
Something very similar happened in Italy.
Absolutely,
yeah.
But this was, so it was clear connection between the ruling party of Serbia and the Chinese embassy. And this was the first story like that in the region, and it went viral. Unfortunately, we were targeted. We suffered a series of DDoS cyber attacks, which were trying to take down our website so that our story could not be read. So that in mind, this is a huge, huge threat, and it's a contemporary threat, which unfortunately the region haven't been focusing enough. So the region is quite vulnerable for both cyber attacks and especially disinformation, which I hope we'll talk more about in the second round. But I want to highlight two other points, and this is the point where we have to keep track with the time and with the evolvement of the cybersecurity threats. And the first one is the 5G technology. Unfortunately, the Western Balkans countries didn't uphold for the clean 5G technology, meaning that the equipment installed within the countries isn't completely safe. Meaning this translates that mainly the issue with Chinese technology installed for the 5G networks hasn't been followed, and we haven't been following our partners within the alliance, within the EU, when it comes to this issue. The second issue is the development of generative AI. So this is a very contemporary challenge, and the only maybe positive thing at this point is that the whole world is at the same point when it comes to generative AI. We're all starting from the same point, and it is important for the region to keep track with the time and to follow the policies of the alliance, the policies of the EU when it comes to AI, because AI is boosting the ability of bad actors to both disseminate disinformation and at the same time boosting the ability for the cyber threats. And this isn't the case only for the state sponsor actors. This is also for the individuals. The AI can now, with the AI, even individuals can produce the massive disinformation campaigns, the same we had from the state-sponsored disinformation campaign in Russia, in USA coming from Russia, or during Brexit in UK.
Thank you. I think it's very, very interesting and very important. If you have the chance to read the latest report by ENISA, which is the cyber agency, the European cyber agency, you can find very interesting insight and warnings on how the AI can be used to boost and to develop disinformation campaigns and social engineering and other stuff like that. And that's very, very important. And thank you for underlining this issue. While we are heading towards the European election, the elections in the US, but also I want to mention the elections in Taiwan in the 14th of January, if I well remember. And I would like to ask you a very simple question with a very difficult, I think, answer, which is how to restore a viable business environment in the arena, in the area.
Thank you very much for the question, and thank you for having me here today. I am, ladies and gentlemen, I am proud and honored to represent American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine here today. MCHM Ukraine is the largest MCHM in Europe with 40 people full-time staff, with 75% of our staff in Kyiv now, and MCHM team managed to deliver the best services under the attacks of cruise, ballistic, and hypersonic missiles and kamikaze drones. Daily policy priorities turned into wartime challenges that require our attention 24/7. It's security and defense, demining, conscription of employees, grain corridor, transport, queues at Ukraine's borders, war risk insurance, cybersecurity, as it was already mentioned here today, data migration, and to the cloud, and many, many others. The mood on the ground is resilient. Actually, while lion-hearted Ukrainians fight for freedom on the battlefield, companies work hard for Ukraine's economic recovery on the business field. Since the beginning of this full-scale war, 148 new members joined MCHM Ukraine, which means business still working there. We keep going. Business adapted to the security, geopolitical, and economic challenges and continue to pay taxes, create jobs, invest, rebuild communities, support the humanitarian drive, and deliver essential modern services that help people in wartime Ukraine. As our survey doing business in wartime Ukraine conducted jointly with our member company City in this September shows that 48% of MCHM members companies are fully operational. We actually have also key priorities from our members for the next 6 months, which are 91% of our members mentioned that safety and security of staff is the #1 challenge for their companies with regard to doing business over the next 6 months. 72% of members given unbeat focus on their company's financial health at the end of 2023. 45% will achieve planned financial results, and 27% will even achieve more than was planned. So the biggest opportunities to attract foreign direct investment to Ukraine in 2023 and beyond shows the following spheres. It's security and defense, infrastructure and construction, IT and technologies, agriculture, energy and renewables, high-tech production. Well, everybody knows that it's risky to invest in Ukraine now, but it's riskier not to invest. We have many examples of companies that successfully operate in between air raid sirens, resumed operations in Ukraine's regions, and built shelters across. It's a risk and reward model in action. But rule of law is crucial for companies. MCM Ukraine has developed a very detailed strategic document which contains 10 priorities for Ukraine's post-war economic recovery. Among those 10 priorities is to foster countrywide digitalization and IT ecosystem growth, secure investment, property rights, level playing field, and proper IPR enforcement. So now it's time to look at Ukraine, because the biggest recovery of a nation in Europe since World War II has already begun. Ukraine is a big country with a large population and an excellent workforce on the border of the EU and with EU accession on track. A country that has turned away from Russia and is clearly facing the West. So don't miss the opportunity and come visit Ukraine if you will have a chance. But what about challenges our members, business community facing in Ukraine? I would mention that in 2019 we established our solid accessible goods task force, and one of these task force priorities is fighting illicit trade. Why we're talking about it? Because of huge state budget losses due to the illicit trade in Ukraine. According to the recent research results, as of June 2023, the share of illegal tobacco products in the total market volume in Ukraine accounts for almost 20%. And according to Kantar's preliminary calculations, the tax revenue losses to the state budget of Ukraine in 2023 from the illegal tobacco market are estimated at more than $570 million. So given these circumstances, it's essential for our government, parliament to join the efforts, as well as law enforcement agencies to join the efforts and intensify this fight against illegal markets. And I would like to thank Halina, who is supporting our job, actually, everything what we are doing in this field. Thank you, Halina, for your support in this. And also would like to mention a couple of words about cybersecurity. I believe it will be interesting for you to hear some numbers about the situation in Ukraine now. So since 2022, a new wave of Ukraine-Russia cyber war started as well. And MCM Ukraine have been targeted as a massive amount of phishing and malware attacks, about 40,000 emails per month. Our website is also a desired goal for hackers. We are registered an average of 28,500 monthly attempts to break our website server security. It's almost 1,000 attempts per day. Even if we are not from the government and who are the top target for Russian hackers, actually, we still represent some value for them. So probably because we have an extensive database with contacts from many different companies worldwide. So we have a lot to do, but we grateful for your support and for opportunity to cooperate with you on all these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Galina, you mentioned that you promised me with a follow-up with your story. So please, the floor again is yours. Unfortunately, when we can hear you.
Yeah, I'd like to
thank you.
comment on some facts that my colleague from MCM has raised about the illicit trading, because this is also a very important issue that we are dealing with now, given the fact that once again, because of full-scale invasion, we have a lot of challenges in economics and a lot of challenges as a representative of government and representative of parliament. I should say that as a consequences, we have a lot of issues in raising basically money to the state budget, because economics goes down and there are some occupied territories, and it also has a negative effect on overall economics and budget. Therefore, both Parliament, government, but also Office of President is trying to see to identify the most problematic spots or the most problematic issues that we have to solve in order to help the what we call legal white companies which work absolutely legal and pay all the taxes, how to help them, how to create better conditions for them, and on the other hand, how to actually curb some schemes where other companies are trying to avoid paying taxes. One of such an important issue that we have discussed a lot this year in Ukraine is the illicit trading of their products that have that are supposed to be licensed and that have the additional taxations. One of them is illegal tobacco trading, as my colleague from MCHM already mentioned. So basically, there was a negative trend during the past years, and currently the latest research says that there are about 20% of illicit trading of tobacco products in Ukraine, which also is partly caused of the full-scale invasion and some chaos that is going on in the internal market. So both government, parliament, and in addition, Office of President were together with the private sector were trying to identify where basically what schemes are taking place and how to actually curb corruption in this regard. Thanks to private sector, but also to the think tanks that were doing some research, we have identified 3 problematic issues. Just this summer, Parliament of Ukraine have adopted a legislation that basically prohibits to sell the tobacco products in the duty-free markets. Because of the full-scale invasion, we now have a limited or basically non-existent aviation connection with the world. We have to travel abroad by railway station or by cars, which also means that we don't really have that amount of the stores, duty-free stores. In the same time, our law enforcement agencies are finding out that the amount of the products which was supposed to be sold through the duty-free market is still basically on the same level as before invasion. So while we are fighting with enemy and hope that the economics and this basically opportunities for companies will be open again, during the war, we decided to actually limit the duty-free trading. In our forecast, it might help to decrease the level of illicit trading at least twice. The legislation that we adopt in summer is in action starting with October. So we also trust that cooperation with private sector, including think tank that are making research in this regard, will show whether the positive dynamics is occurring thanks to the legislation changes of the parliament. And probably to sum up, I want to say that economic development as well as the fighting with our enemy really depends not only on the state, but also on all groups of society, on private sector as well. And government are very keen and very looking forward to cooperate with private sector, to cooperate with civil society actors and other active group of society. Now we really need it. The situation is changing rapidly. We have never been in such a situation, and we have never faced such a challenges as we face now. And that is why it's important to be in touch, to have constant communication, but also to react and to provide data, to provide facts, and maybe even provide some suggestions what can be the best way to form the new state policies given the new circumstances that we are in now.
Thank you. Sorry for this switch, but Oksana, the final line of the concept of this discussion is the objective is to maximize the economic viability of Ukraine while undercutting illegal profits favoring hostile actors. So, given these hostile actors, do you think that this process can help Ukraine to be more and more connected? I mean, also integrated in the Euro-Atlantic system?
I believe, yeah, sure, because we are actually on our way to EU. We adopting necessary legislation. We are doing our homework, let's say, to be ready to join the EU and actually fighting the illicit markets and fighting the shadow economy is one of key prerequisites for joining actually EU and for our further economic development and growth, because we definitely need this money at this stage, this money which we lose from the shadow economy, we need for our defense purposes, obviously. But also, after our victory, we will need this money to rebuild our country. So that's not only about joining EU, but it's also about our internal priorities to become a country we believe we will become with peace and with growing economy, with great opportunities to invest, to further do business in Ukraine.
Thank you. You also promised me a follow-up, and you mentioned the cyber disinformation operation in the region, but I'm very interested in the specific of the Russian activity there.
So in the previous panel, we heard about the lack of strategy from the West when it comes to the Western Balkan region. Unfortunately, Russia had a clear strategy, and that was for several years building a strong network of proxies, which are now doing the Russian bidding in the region, meaning that Russia doesn't have to exert much resources or time to spread its influence in the region. That influence comes from politics. You heard the ambassador saying that Dodik has a hotline with Putin that comes from economic, in the sector of energy. Russian Gazprom is the majority owner of oil industry in Serbia. That comes from the very strong and big network of far-right extremist groups, which are now slowly translating into the political parties which are contesting into the elections. Also, there's a huge network of media, which propagandistic pro-Russian media, including the two Russian media outlets, Sputnik and RT. And there's a network of local pro-Russian media who are doing an enormous job for helping Russia, and they're not just promoting pro-Russian stances, they're promoting anti-Western narratives. They're attacking NATO values, they're attacking EU values, and unfortunately it's working. The public opinion poll in Serbia shows the historically low support for the EU enlargement, 35%. So it's not majority of citizens of Serbia that wants to be part of the EU. At the same time, and this is really alarming data, which I witnessed last week at the EU Media Literacy Conference in Podgorica. It was mentioned that 50% of Montenegrin youth, so between 18 and 30 years, believes that US, NATO, EU, and Ukraine are responsible for the war in Ukraine and Russian aggression. So Russian propaganda is clearly working, and they have this enormous network spread across different fields, and we need a clear strategy, we need a clear response for these activities, because the region will completely shift from the EU and NATO alignment towards the pro-Russian and pro-Chinese. We keep forgetting that China, but China is very subtle and very active in the region.
Just a quick question to follow up on that. You mentioned that the Russian strategy is clear. Do you think that since the asymmetric nature of the cyberspace is clear, since it's easier?
Well, it's much easier to attack through cyberspace. You have a the low level of IT literacy within the public administration of Western Balkan countries. So they're very unprepared for these type of attacks. And most common reason for a successful cyber attacks are human errors. So this is something that Russia is also trying to exploit. And the key goal is, if it's not possible to sway the country towards pro-Russian stances, it's the ability to destabilize a country, to make it a dysfunctional state, which will later dysfunction the whole region, and with that destabilize the Euro-Atlantic community.
Thank you. I just want to open the talk to our guests and Alessandro.
Yes, I'm, the director of the NATO Defense College Foundation, so I'm very pleased to have two women in the panel to put you this question. What sort of Euro-Atlantic collaboration do you envisage regarding organized crime? It's an essential point of illegal trafficking, and so I would be happy to hear, what is your expertise. And another question is to our Montenegrin friend. Do you think it's possible to have some regional cybersecurity cooperation? Okay, we have, Euro-Atlantic organs, we have NATO centers of excellence, but this, you already touched it, but, probably also within the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessandro. Anyone who want to join the conversation? I remember, as my colleague Alexandra said before, question, not statements, but please, if you want to join the conversation, be free. But I want to give the floor to Halina. The question by Alessandro Politi was quite clear about what sort of cooperation, the transatlantic collaboration on illegal economics and traffics.
Thank you for your question. I think that actually we have a fantastic window of opportunity to create new lines of cooperation between various institutions and various groups of society of Ukraine, and then basically the Euro-Atlantic countries, our Western friends and allies. We now see that this cooperation is fantastic when we are talking about security and defense, when we are talking about cooperation between the ministries of defense and other defense organizations, when we are talking about the cooperation and exchange of information and technologies between the armies. I believe that the similar cooperation can and should be established when we are talking about fighting with organized crimes, and when we are talking about cooperation between the law enforcement bodies. Ukrainian state bodies, Ukrainian law enforcement are actively cooperating with our Western counterparts. There are a number of memorandums signed. There is a number of activities in terms of exchanging information and helping, well, basically international cooperation. One of the very important initiative, which is still not signed, but in my opinion, it should be signed in order to actually curb organized crime as well as smuggling, is the exchange of information between the border administrative border organizations. I should say that a couple of years ago, Ukraine have signed such an agreement on exchanging the information between the databases of borders with, surprisingly, China. So now when some companies or private, basically companies are exporting something from China and importing it to Ukraine, we see not only the documentation or not only the papers of the companies that they provide to Ukrainian border guards or border administration, but we also see the documents and see all the information that was provided to Chinese border administration. And if there is some differences between the list of the goods that was exported from China and imported to Ukraine, we see it and we can ask the questions. Where are the goods, or whether the papers were faked, in order to decrease the amount or change the kind of the goods that are imported in Ukraine. As far as I know, the same agreement is still not signed between Ukraine and European Union. And surprisingly, it's not, in this regard, it's not the fault or not the lack of activities of Ukrainian government because we've been requesting to actually sign such an agreement and start implementation of sharing information and sharing databases, border databases or custom databases with European Union. This only little agreement or basically initiative will really help us to curb corruption and illicit trading on the custom, on the border. So I hope that given the fact that a lot of cooperation and a lot of basically activities, a lot of political will to cooperate with Ukraine is happening now in European Union, this agreement will also be signed, and European Union will change their mind in terms of sharing databases with Ukrainian customs.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, same question, same interesting question.
I would like to support what just Helena said, and I fully agree that sharing experience and sharing necessary information is crucial for cooperation on fighting the illicit markets, on fighting the illegal traffic and organized crimes. So it's really important, and I believe that also such public discussions like we have today is also very helpful, because we need to tell the truth about issues we have and to jointly find the ways to resolve them.
Thank you. Do you think that sharing information is the answer also on the cyber arena?
Absolutely. So basically, the question which was pointed towards me, it is absolute necessity to have such an organization which will cover the regional issue of cybersecurity and disinformation campaigns. We have similar organizations in Scandinavia and in the Baltics, and these countries are the most resilient one against the malign foreign influence. And the benefit for the Western Balkans wouldn't be just the protection of our cyberspace and information space. It will be also these kind of organizations would boost the cooperation between the countries, which are quite low at the moment, but also would boost the cooperation between the region and the Euro-Atlantic community.
As a journalist, I'm quite skeptical on an agency dealing with
Well,
what is.
if you have, for example, there are plenty of organizations such as DFC, Digital Forensic Center, where I come from. If you can make a similar organization collaborate under one roof, I think that's very possible, because those organizations are filled with pro-democratic young people, enthusiastic, who believes in democratic values and are ready to fight this fight against malign foreign influence.
That's a big debate. We can discuss after that. But we have two questions from Zoom, just a few minutes left. So what sort of Euro-Atlantic you envisage against organized crime, and how could be a regional cooperation in the Black Sea region against illegal trafficking? There are dedicated bodies for it. So just a very brief answers from you all. First, Galina, please. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a question from the audience, and I want to collect that.
I'm Manfredi Brovo, a student in Sapienza, and I want to have a question with you. Is how hacker attack and how you contrast them radically in.
Sorry, I didn't
Can you repeat, please?
How hacker attack and how you contrast them.
Okay. So the first from you, and
I didn't hear.
yeah, how in that specific area does the do the hacker attack, and how they
So
that's a large one.
Yeah, so basically this issue of the malign foreign influence is a constant threat, and these attacks are constant for the region, and the issue is this trust between the institutions and the citizens. We need to build this trust, and this comes from the government institution, but also from the Euro-Atlantic community. Building the trust which currently does not exist between the citizens of the Western Balkan region and the institutions such as NATO and the EU, but also government institutions.
Thank you. Galina, please.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I got the question correctly.
Yeah, I'm asking the guys to show me the first two questions from Zoom, and yeah, the first one is what sort of Euro-Atlantic cooperation against the organized crime, and the second one is about the regional cooperation in the Black Sea region against illegal trafficking.
Well, I believe that actually one of the most important initiatives that we can do in this regard is something that I already mentioned. It's an exchange, or basically sharing information between the customs databases. Because we can, of course, do a lot of increase the participation of law enforcement, and it will be an increase in resources we spend on so-called fighting corruption. But as a person who've been studying anti-corruption politics and who've been forming anti-corruption politics in Ukraine for quite some time already, I can tell you that choosing between the fighting corruption and preventing corruption, I would personally always recommend to increase their resources and efforts in preventing corruption. It is much more efficient. You can fight with some phenomena forever, but if you don't change the rules and regulations, if you don't change the basic rules, how the market functions, how some phenomena are functioning, you won't get a sustainable and long-term effect. And that's why I'm saying that we need to focus on prevention of corruption. We need to focus on prevention of organized crime. And if we are talking about something that is going on customs or on borders, one of the most efficient initiatives is to actually start sharing information between the databases of Ukraine and European Union. That's how we can actually, with the limited amount of resources, human resources, financial resources, that's how we can actually get the real result shortly and in a sustainable manner.
Thank you. Would you like to?
Same,
Yeah.
same thing goes for both Euro-Atlantic cooperation or Euro-Atlantic area and Black Sea area, because we also have basically some neighbors, including the members of European Union, which are our Black Sea neighbors as well, to some extent.
Thank you. Would you like to address this issue?
Actually, I believe, yeah, that what Halina mentioned, that what we talked about during previous questions, that sharing information, sharing experience, especially with neighbor countries where we have joint borders, it's really important, and it will help preventing crimes, organized crimes, illegal trafficking. So, yeah.
Thank you. I want to thank our distinguished speaker. I want to thank you for the attention. We have another interesting coffee break in the same room as before, and the next panel will start in a quarter of hour, in 20 minutes. Thank you. Thank you so much.